Good evening and a very warm welcome to Professor Dr. Azza Karam, the General Secretary of Religions for Peace. Azza, 3 weeks ago, you held your first assembly on women, faith and diplomacy. What was the cause for you to decide to make women the protagonists of this very important 3-day conference?
That you will know that this year was the 25th anniversary of the Beijing Platform for Action. It's the anniversary of the UN Security Council Resolution 1325 on women, peace and security. It's the 50th anniversary of Religions for Peace. Because of the confluence of all these things, one of the learnings from 50 years of multi-religious collaboration is that in order for the collaboration to work, to be operational and go beyond words expressed to actions taken at the multi-religious level, and frankly, at any level, women's needs, women's concerns, women's insights, women's experiences, all have to be taken into account and rendered much respect to.
Religions for Peace is an interreligious network consisting of global leaders from all around the world. So what is the advantage or the asset, in your own words, of discussing global issues of peace and security across religions?
I think it's not just an advantage, it's a moral, political, social, cultural, financial imperative to consider and to activate multi-religious collaboration and service to communities, to all humanity. Multi-religious collaboration is an imperative. Why? It's not just religion is important, religions matter, we have to work with religious organizations. This was perhaps important to articulate 20 to 25 years ago. Today it is important to appreciate, to support, to sustain, to consolidate, to enrich multi-religious collaborations in service to communities and people around the world. This is how we need to provide a new paradigm for thinking and for praxis, for actions. We have now invested so many years in looking at secular paradigms, which argue for the role of the governments and intergovernmental and non-state and para-state. And we've invested 75 years in the UN's history of trying to build and support through governments. It is time that we now look at how the multi-religious, not only the multinational, but the multi-religious, because there are 50 years in Religions for Peace of doing this, experience of serving multi-religiously. It's been 50 years of serving multi-religiously. In other words, we have enough experience to fall back upon, many lessons to be learned. If we are serious about making sure that the multilateral can survive and thrive in the coming century that we live in now, we must make sure that the multi-religious can be ensured and can survive.
During the corona pandemic, the level of gender-based violence increased in all parts of the world, irrespective of a country's wealth, religion, culture, or their form of governance. So how can we combat this trend? And maybe looking back at your assembly on women, faith and diplomacy, what learnings do you think can we draw from the discussions you had in this regard?
The only way to combat a very long existing pandemic called gender-based violence, not just violence against women, but gender-based violence, one of the oldest pandemics, I think, in human history. In fact, many faith traditions and holy books talk about gender-based violence. One of the ways to do so, Teresa, is to make sure that we can work together. We can break the silos of theme, of nation, geography, religion, ethnicity, race, gender. We need to work and see what is happening to us, not as this is a temporary public health disaster that the whole world is currently facing. Before that and during this, there is an HIV/AIDS disaster that the whole world is facing. And before this and during this, there is also the issue of an environmental disaster that the whole... And then we keep working in our incredibly respective silos, not understanding and appreciating that the pandemic, per definition, is when plenty disasters come together. and that a pandemic, per definition, will lead to the emergence and clarity about the multiple catastrophes that are taking place at the same time. We cannot afford to work in our political, financial, thematic, developmental, humanitarian silos.